Hello, and welcome to your daily dose of truth to hear. I'm Melanie Keenan, and this is Truth Talk with Bill and Brandy. When God gave me this title for the show, it was something that Bill and Brandy and I just knew it was something we needed to address, something we needed to talk about, have an open discussion with. But it was also something that I thought the title of the show was Truth to Hear. And I always thought truth was something based on facts of history, facts of biology, facts of evidence. I never thought that we would come to a time where fact is merely someone's opinion, someone's feelings or ideas that have been made into a organized process or thought. When regulations and laws can be declared based on not offending someone else, when regulations and laws can be declared to silence and obstruct one section of society over another section of society, it takes away our basic freedoms. Instead of doing that, why can't we just have respect for everyone's belief, everyone's ideas, everyone's opinions, and all the cultures? Now, I didn't say we have to agree with it. I said, why can't we respect it? Give everyone the freedom that this country was founded for, the freedom to be your own person. Well, joining me today in this discussion of cancer culture and gender neutrality is my lovely co-host, Brandy. Hello, Brandy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. This culture of cancel culture, where did we even get it from? Like, when I first heard it, I thought, well, this is some childish thing that they're doing on social media. It's not got any legs. It's going to be ineffective. It's just a social media thing with creators. What was your first exposure to the cancer culture?
Oh gosh. I don't really know what my first experience was, but I can say it's probably been over the last I just turned 40, so probably over the last 5 years. It seems like it's just getting worse and worse and worse as we go along, and we just find new things to be offended about,
Yeah,
therefore canceling its existence because uh, I do teaching on generations, so Generation X, Generation Y, and all the differences. And what I found is that what seems to have happened, in my personal opinion, is that we were treated a certain way by our parents. So when we came along, we said we don't like that. We're going to change it.
here's the definition of cancer culture. Cancer culture refers to the popular practice of withdrawing support for canceling public figures and companies after they've done something or said something considered objectionable or offensive. Cancel culture is generally discussed as being performed on social media in the form of group shaming. So, the fact that you can lose your company or your practices or your job because you offend someone, but I want to talk about the beginning of it, because basically it's about speech, right? If you said something, that's when you get canceled.
Right.
Not conforming to the viewpoints of others. And you said it. It's like a group of people got together and said, this is not what I want to hear anymore. I don't like that verbiage. So they made it so social media, what do you call it, viral, that they don't like it. Everybody joined on the bandwagon and said, hey, I
Right.
don't like that either. Finally, someone's speaking my voice. But it used to be that we can have a difference of opinion, right, Brandy?
Right.
I mean, you have people who lose family, who lose jobs, who lose friends, who lose like 30-year careers because people don't like what they've done. Not that they did anything against the job or that specific family member, but because they don't like their ideas or their feelings or their thoughts. And I still can't, I'm wearing this Doctor Who necklace because this episode reminds me of just how crazy I feel like we are, like warping around in different, eras, and it just it makes no sense anymore. Do you know where the beginning of this came from, Brandy?
I actually don't.
Well, I had to ask my younger people in my life because I didn't either. But it is social media. Like it started with social media and people realizing that some of the YouTube creators were offensive, and they decided to band together and say, "Hey, we don't like what you're saying," but it was really offensive. And I'm going to give you some examples of that. It was correctly offensive. Like you don't need this stuff out there for people, especially young people who's looking up to these creators. And they decided to say, "You know what? We're going to ban you. We're going to tell everybody not to watch you because you're perverted." That's how it started. So the very first person that I can think of, and I'm sure it happened before this, but the one that really made it well known, his name is Shane Dawson. And this says it all. Like he did blackface, he pretended to have sexual issues and with young kids. He made jokes about being a predator to children and animals, like animals as well. And so he got backlash. Here's some of the backlash. "I'm done with the excuses. How dare you?" And I'm not going to use some words. "How dare you talk about inappropriate things with an 11-year-old girl?" He would just made racist comments. And then here's his show, the minstrel show, and he did blackface. And so when Shane Dawson did this, it was being outraged by other YouTube creators saying, "Why are you watching this guy? Like, do you not know what he's talking about? His content is perverted." Yeah, he did some great makeup lines. Everybody wanted his makeup lines. But at the core of it, this is who he's talking. He's filtering it in with all this perverted information, and this hate information. And so they decided to cancel him. That's like the first thing that we know about and how that started coming. But now it's filtered into like everyday life, into politics, into news, into actors. And I think, what do you think about that? Like, do you think the beginning was right and then it just got veered off and taken control of?
And because I am Black, African American, so and that was offensive directly to our culture. However, I guess I adapted to the scroll on by mentality. I just don't take on offense. And maybe because we read that wonderful book called The Bait of Satan, um, I just don't I don't let stuff bother me like that. If it wasn't murder, kill, destroy, that kind of thing, the blackface part I probably would have bypassed because that's been happening for centuries. People have been doing that for years. So to just target him and cancel him alone, we need to go cancel a whole bunch of other people. Now the young girl part, that should be criminal because you're literally that's pedophilia. He's 20 something years old, she's 11, she was 11 or 12 at the time. So for me, that would to me seem like he could possibly act on, because they tell me what you think you'll eventually do.
Mhm.
So that would have probably been the cancel his whole show part for me, because I'm sure somebody else was watching it, getting a rise off of it, and may have actually acted on it. So it probably would split down the middle for me as far as canceling him out. Everybody on the internet's not positive, and we have to understand that freedom of speech has gone out the window. I I don't think that when they did freedom of speech back in the 1800s that they took us into consideration. I don't think that we were uh, thought about at all. Internet, people really have lost their minds when it comes to freedom of speech. But someone said one day, freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequences from what you said. And I
Right.
think that's what people are not understanding. You can say what you want to say because you own your own mouth, you own your fingers, you can type whatever you want. But the rebuttal and the consequence that comes from what you said is what's going to present your new reality. You can't just say whatever you want and think I can just get away with it because I have freedom of speech. You do have freedom of speech, but you also have freedom of retaliation if what you said is not received well.
You know, I think you bring a point. I never thought about this before, Brandy. You know, before the internet and all these social medias, we kind of surrounded ourselves with like-minded people. So we weren't offended so much. And so when someone said something off color or offensive, you just said, what's wrong with you?
Right.
And you decided to either stop being friends or stop working at that company. It wasn't a mandate by some group and organization, this person can't be spoken to again. And I think that's the problem. We now have all of these things. I'm like you, turn from the channel. Unless it's really criminal, turn from the channel. Why do you have to cancel the man? If his numbers go down, he no longer exists. The
Right.
fact that you cancel him makes him a news story, which gives him more notoriety, and it just builds and builds and builds his legacy. So I'm with you. Like, why are we so sensitive to think that we can just rule people and say, I don't like it, it's wrong? Why can't we just turn the channel? And talking about consequences, I want to this one I have to laugh at, Brandy. Justin Timberlake. Justin Timberlake canceled. All right. Now, over Britney Spears and Janet Jackson. Now, I just want to know, what's your first thought about that? What is your very first thought about that?
So I did not know that happened. So I'm sitting here like, what? That's so
Right? That's
like that's
old, right? I'm like, wait a minute.
12 years ago or something.
That's what I thought. But check out this article. Check out this article. The date is February 12th, 2021. I know I failed. Justin Timberlake issues an apology to Britney Spears and Janet Jackson. Now, I have the full article here. This is why it's news today, because a documentary on Britney Spears went out on Hulu recently.
Hmm.
Um, and so people got outraged because in that documentary, Britney Spears said that she was set up by Justin Timberlake over the "I never had sex" scandal, and Justin Timberlake said, "You did." And so because of that new documentary, Justin Timberlake now has consequences of 12 years ago that has caused him to be in jeopardy of everything. So I just want to say this, because to me, if it takes you 12 years and you don't say anything to address it until you have an issue where people are like, hey, we're about to cancel you, dude, right? It's not authentic anyway, right?
Well, because run me back with the story. Was the sex consensual?
Britney Spears at that time, she was during it, and she was always saying, no, I'm waiting until marriage. And
Right.
she was putting, her wholesome image was out there. I'm waiting till marriage. Well, Justin Timberlake had an interview, and um, in 2002, this is when it happened, 2002,
I thought
and he was asked, "Did you actually sleep with Spears yet?" And he playfully responds, "Okay, I did it," and then he tries to retract it. Well, he didn't do it. She was telling the truth. He set her up because he knew the ratings would get big. So
Oh,
this is what he says. He says that the industry is flawed. It sets men, especially white men, up for success. As a
okay.
man in privileged position, I have to be vocal about this because of my ignorance. I didn't recognize it for all that it was while it was happening, but I do not want to ever benefit from others being pulled down again. Um, and he also goes on to say, I don't care that it's been well over a decade. Justin Timberlake says he apologizes for framing Britney Spears as a cheater in the public eye. So he did apologize for Britney Spears now. Janet Jackson. Well, you everybody knows in 2004 what happened with Janet Jackson. I'm not going to go into the sort of details of that, but he says that he apologizes to her as well for the incident negatively affected Jackson's career and the fact that she was forced to apologize while he expressed nothing to the public as far as an apology. Um, he says he understands that he fell short, you know, and that this system, what did he say? He said he benefited from a system that condones misogyny and racism. So that's Justin Timberlake. This is my thing. Whether you agree that he should have been canceled or you agree that it's too late, bygones are bygones. It's never a bad thing to go back and say you're sorry, to be educated and understand what you didn't understand 12 years ago. That's never a bad thing. But where does this go? Like, I don't want someone pulling stuff up out of my life for 20 years and saying, account for everything you've done and every word, or you're no longer valid. Like, that's the thing. They didn't just demand an apology, they're threatening to cancel him.
Let me rewind and piggyback on what you said. I know when I was in my early 20s, probably up to my early 30s, could have been last week. I've done some ignorant stuff, just ignorant. You're looking at you like, why did you even do that? And you are more faced to the entertainment industry than I am, but the little bit of entertainment that I industry that I was in, it is very pressured to do certain things and say certain things. So you have this young guy. I think so. In 2002, he couldn't be over probably 22, maybe 20. You got a lot. He got a lot of money. Justin Timberlake was the man. And especially like you said, they put me in the industry where they build up white men, good looking white men. Say this, act like this. We got your back. We'll give you money. So now he's grown up, saw the industry. He didn't know that back then.
No.
Um, do we turn a blind eye? Is it they're trying to frame him like he should be part of the Me Too movement? He
Right.
was a young boy just doing stupid stuff and shouldn't have said yeah. That's locker room talk. Yeah, I slept with her. That's little boy locker room talk. He was not a grown man, and it's almost like powerless people are trying to find some level of power so they can say, "Look what we did. Look what
Yep.
we did to him. Look how we made him fall at the height of his career. Look how we reach." I tell people who knew me 5 years ago. If you're looking for the 5 years ago me, that I'm not there, I'm not her anymore. And so I can't imagine somebody trying to reach back and pull something of my past and go, why did you do that? You should be canceled. Well, what about me now? And I've had to turn around and say, I'm sorry to my own child. So I can imagine, hey,
Right.
I didn't. I really messed up that year. I didn't realize it until yesterday when I was, remembering certain things. So I can't imagine having the pressure of performance because that's all that is. The pressure of performance. Do this, say this, act this way, and I'm gonna give you 7 zeros behind your dollar, probably 8 zeros. I can't imagine it. So this culture reaching back, trying to say you're a horrible individual. Yes, what he did was bad, but again, we have bigger fish to fry. There are so many other things that we could be putting our finger on than that.
Well, I want to talk about that because we're going to talk about that today. People offending people today. And we're going to go, I just want to highlight these two. Morgan Whalen, country star, dropped from radio, disqualified the Academy Awards, Academy of Country Music Awards. Okay, now this story, let me just give you a little bit of history, and then I'm going to tell you the next one. Now he was drunk, and he was walking with his friends from his car to his apartment to his front door. Okay, he was drunk, and he was talking to his friends and saying inappropriate language. I'm not even going to repeat it. Okay, But in that inappropriate sentence, he said the N word to his friend. Now, without even questioning, before a blink of an eye, he was taken off of his contract with Cumulus Media. He was taken off the radio, 400 stations gone. He disappeared off Spotify, the Hot Country Songs playlist, and Apple Music. He's disqualified from the Academy of Country Music upcoming awards. Now, I'm sorry, he didn't call anyone the N word. He didn't racially go after anybody. It was friend to friend, and that's their verbiage. However, they accept their languages. I don't think. Do you think that they did this because they really felt like it was offensive, or because they knew that the tides that come after them are going to come after them if they don't do it? So it's more like now the corporations and the companies are doing cancel culture for the fear of what social media people are going to say.
Right. It's almost like everybody's trying to save face. Me personally, again, that would have been a direct attack against our our culture. However, if he was not saying it directly to someone, being directly offensive, do you know how much stuff I say to my friend that I wouldn't dare say in public, or someone could overhear me? Because I can talk to my friend and be honest. The truth of the matter is, we are humans and we are flawed. We are not perfect. We make mistakes. There are seeds inside of us. Even the word tells us we are shaped in iniquity, which means that we came here with problems. For you
Yeah.
watching iniquity, that just means we came here sick. It says we are shapen in iniquity. There's stuff that's in my bloodline. There's things that I've heard in my family that somebody might say, and I repeat it, and I might not even know, that that's wrong. Now, does he know that's wrong? I'm pretty sure he does. But he was
Yeah.
talking to his friend, who I'm pretty sure if he knew, if I say this, I'm getting ready to be canceled, he wouldn't have said it, because we polish ourselves before we go public. It's that power performance. We cannot cancel everybody that has a bitter heart. We cannot cancel everybody that says something wrong in a moment of, we can even call it weakness. Maybe behind closed doors, that's how he talks. I've had a Caucasian talk to me about another black person using the N word.
What about when it's not by mistake, Brandy? And there's a lot. I'm just pulling a few. What about Gina Carano? Well, here she is. Here she is. Disney under heavy fire after Lucasfilm drops actress Gina Carano. Okay, so this one people are outraged about. They want to go ahead and say cancel Disney Plus. Now she was a major star on The Mandalorian. It's a Disney Plus show. I've watched it a little bit, and so before we get into the story, let's see if Bill is back on.
I
All
am. I
right,
can
Bill,
hear you now.
we're good to go. All right, so we're talking
Good.
now about Gina Carano and how she didn't
Yeah.
make a mistake, but she purposely said her viewpoints. She is a conservative, and she's a strong supporter of Donald Trump. She has been vocal about her viewpoints, about wondering about the mask mandate for COVID. Is it wise? Is it not wise? She outspoken against the BLM activist. She has said tweets against making someone use the added pronouns for gender. She says, I don't think trans people, this is a quote, I don't think trans people would like all of you trying to force a woman to put something in her bio through harassment and name calling every day for months. And so she's saying, that she was sticking up for the transgender community, if you ask me, saying, look, they're trying to force me to say something I'm not. And I don't even think your community wants people out there faking it, and doing something that's not legitimate. And so she was very vocal about that. And then she came out and said, the outcry against the Trumpers, the right wing party, is kind of like how Hitler did it. He didn't just come out and get the Jews. He said, hey, you guys, the Jews are bad. Hey, you got to stop what they're doing. He got neighbor against neighbor. He got neighbors to turn people in. And it was a government trying to just say, hey, the Jewish people is bad as a community. We need to start getting rid of them. We need to start telling about what they do. And she akin that to how the left side is going after Republicans, okay, and conservatives. What do you think? Should she have been canceled for that? That's her own opinion. That's a private matter. How did she did not do anything
I
against the company?
really think so, but I don't think
years is this political correctness thing. If you don't agree with me, then you're not worthy of existing. And I don't agree with that. I think that's a very weird view, but it's very prominent on college campuses. If you got people that won't listen to opposing view, they go and protest it. I remember when I was a kid, but they always talked about the blacklist in Hollywood for the people that supposedly communists, and then they couldn't get a job. Alan Alda or whatever, the left wingers when I was a kid that were super popular, they just, well, that's un-American. You can't take a person's political views and not give them a job. And now the exact same people, the left, is taking anyone that they can and saying, you can't have a job. We're not going to let you work. We're going to cancel you. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with the blacklist? It's the same thing. People do wrong things in the name often of we're right, everybody else is wrong. And well, I don't think it's just the people. I think it tricks people into thinking, hey, those people aren't worthy of anything.
There is definitely a spiritual aspect to this, because you can't get everyone across the countries to agree on one thing all the way. There has to be something else going on. And we know that there's a battle for family units. There's a battle for people to be prosperous and be able to speak their mind, especially conservatives and Christians. And this is just, to me, it's just insane that everyone just sits back and says, okay, just let it roll. Like, why do you think people aren't speaking about this? People who have YouTube channels, people who have news channels and TV shows, the ones that have the power to do something. Here you have one actress unafraid to speak her beliefs, but she gets totally wiped out for that. And no one but little people on tweets and stuff is saying this is wrong. Why isn't anyone coming out to say, wait a minute, what do you think? Why is anybody not doing that?
And I was bringing this up a couple of weeks ago. This is akin to the Salem witch trials. You speak out, even if you're for Gina's side, not for her side. Like, you don't even agree with Gina, but you say, hey, I don't think you should fire her from her job because she disagrees. Even if you did that right now, they're going to accuse you of being a witch too. The first group people of being a witch, and then they got convicted of it, and there was a couple of executions. He said, hey, you can't do that. That's wrong. We're not doing this correct. And if you're not even a right winger, it matters. Just if you say, hey, slow down, all of a sudden you're going to be canceled. So they're scared to speak up.
That's an excellent point, that you're silent because it's big enough to take you down with them. So everybody's just silent. But isn't that how bad people win? Isn't that how bad laws stay laws? Isn't that how things that impact our community and society negatively, isn't that how it wins? Because people stay silent. I think also, I don't think people on our level, think it's ever going to hit us. Well, that's just for the politicians and the famous people, and they've got money. It doesn't really matter if they get canceled. That's for those YouTubers who got millions of subscribers. It's not going to hit the normal people. I want to share this story with you because it hits the normal people. They don't tell us about it. This gentleman, all right, forced to resign because he wore an Afro wig 3 days before his retirement. 3 days before his retirement. He wore that wig. All right. Now I'm gonna give you the preface of the story. It's in DeKalb County. As Deputy Antonio Perryman, 3 days before his retirement of 20 years in service, 24 years, no spot on his record, was forced to resign for wearing a wig while directing traffic. He did it, he said, because he thought people needed to smile and it would make them laugh. Remember when clowns put on that afro and people laugh at them? So he put on an afro head and thought people would think it's funny. Throw back to the 70s, right? Well, this is what happened when his shift ended. Deputy Sheriff Melody Maddox claimed that both she and Sheriff Jeffrey Mann were not pleased with the wig, and the punishment was forced to resign. Okay? They said that Perryman disgraced the uniform by wearing an afro wig. Disgraced the uniform. So here's a man, the sheriff, saying that this gentleman disgraced a uniform by putting on a wig. Now, women wear wigs every day. Why can't men wear a wig? There's a thought. But the sheriff, he actually did disgrace the uniform, and he's still sheriff, because in 2017 he was charged with indecency and obstruction, and he was caught on video running and evading from the police through public parks. But he is still sheriff. But yet this gentleman canceled. And you know what he wants? He's all he wants, Mr. Perryman. He says, I just want my record to reflect that I retired. I just want my retirement. 20 years of service gone because you wear a wig? Okay, how does that sound right to anybody?
I think it's racially motivated. Personally.
Well, yeah, because they said it was an afro wig. They were not pleased with it. It disgraced the uniform to wear an afro wig. I think the sheriff should be fired. I think the sheriff and the deputy sheriff should be canceled for making that judgment. Mind you, there was no complaints by the people. The public had no problem with it. They were tweeting, I love it. I love this. They had actual good comments and responses to it. Nobody complained.
Problems with him.
So my point is this, it's going to hit us.
Yeah.
It's going to trickle down.
And regardless of what this is the problem with that, regardless of what the person's motive was, nobody cares anymore. And that's weird, because you gotta even in law. I mean, I've been a cop a long time. There's the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. You got to get to the bottom of stuff. Why in the world, when somebody's going to record, I don't know. There may be something behind the scenes too, that particular sheriff doesn't like him. I don't know. That happens, politics inside a unit, and I've had people say, oh, you got to stop doing that, Bill, or you're going to get in trouble with the department.
I know I've asked people to be on my Wednesday show, Truth Talk, a Conversation, and they're like, I can't do it. If my job finds out, I'm going to lose my income. I can't say what I really believe or what I do outside of my job, because it will go back to them. But that is losing our freedom of speech at the core of who we are. If we're afraid to say what we believe and we can't share with other people unless it meets, I don't know whose agenda, then we have lost our freedom of speech in this country. Let me show you where it might go. This is a story. I don't know if you guys know about this story yet. In a surprise move, Facebook blocks news access in Australia. Okay. Facebook prevented Australians from sharing news that also blocked some government communication and commercial pages. If you think this isn't going to hit, it's going to hit. So let me tell you this. Prime Minister Scott Morrison lashed out on Facebook, and he said, Facebook's action to unfriend Australia today, cutting off essential information services on health and emergency services, was arrogant as they were disappointing. He goes on to say that their actions only confirm the concerns that an increasing number of countries are expressing, that big tech companies who think they are bigger than governments and that rules should not apply to them. He said, we're not going to be intimidated by big tech. This is an assault on a sovereign nation. And he goes on and says, how can they do that? Well, what happened? I'll tell you why they did it. So Australian, in their legislation, in the House of Representatives, they wanted to pass legislation that required Google, Facebook to pay for some of their journalism because they're making a lot of money off of news stories. And so they said, hey, let's consider coming into a contract that they pay for some of the news that comes out of Australia. I don't think that's a bad thought, do you?
Mm-mm.
They're making millions off of the news, so why not pay for some of the news stories? So this wasn't even a law, okay? It needed to go through another process, and it didn't go there yet. But Facebook got wind of it, and they shut down access to Facebook. They shut down even emergency services. He said there was a severe fire and flood warnings in Australia. Nobody knew about it. They couldn't get the message out to help people because Facebook said, you want us to pay? We're not going to run anything anymore. They also shut down the Royal Children's Hospital communication. Why are you shutting down a children's hospital's communication? Because they wanted to hurt them and say, hey, you want us to take any of our millions of dollars and pay you? Well, we'll just shut you out. This is going to come to America if it's not stopped in Australia. It's a fine line. How do you not comply or conform when there's so much at stake? How do you not get on and say, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that. Here, we're going to segue a minute because this is the second part of, I believe, our loss of freedoms in America and freedom of speech. And it's called gender neutrality. Now, I want to say this first. We at Truth to Hear, and especially Bill, Brandy, and myself, we believe that everyone has the right and the freedom to think for yourself, to choose for yourself, and to decide for yourself who and what you are, what you want to do with your life, what you want to say or be. We don't believe that anyone should dictate or compel another part of society to let go of their beliefs in order to uphold someone else's belief. Okay? Why? I don't understand why this whole concept of now gender neutrality, we have to comply. We can't have our own thoughts about gender. We can't have our own ideas or actions if it contradicts another group or another organization. Again, we're doing what? We're going straight into the losses of freedom. What do I mean? I want to give you this example. And Brandy, take it after I show this. You take it, okay? Here's our new pronouns. Now, pronouns are what? He, she, they, them, we, us, right? Here's our new pronoun list. You have our normals, or our main societal ones that's always been around. Okay, he is a male, she is a female. It is either or, or an object. They is multiple people. But now we have they, they, spiffek, z or they, air, they and their, and I don't even know how to say xe, x, they, I don't know. So they're derivatives of the original he, him, they, themselves. Now I can't even interpret this, not being, mean to those who believe that these are their pronouns. I've not been taught this. I don't know how to use these correctly, to be honest with you. So that goes into, they're going to have to teach this in schools because in order to demand that we use them, which people are demanding, there's people getting in trouble for not using these pronouns. They're going to have to teach the next generation these pronouns. Brandy?
Well, I just first want to say, from an editor standpoint, you just made my life very hard. I don't want to learn it. I don't want to learn it because in my mind, it's he, she, they, and them makes our life easy. That's what I've known since I was a baby. I'm willing to add in. What I don't appreciate is removing. Why do I have to remove the fact that I'm a she in order to add your Z? It sounded like a lot of it was started with a Z. So why do I is that a Z chromosome? Is that the one that makes us one?
I don't know. Let's see. Z no, because it's for he and her. Like
Okay.
ZE can be HIR. I think that's just like himself, but it's air
Him.
self. And ZIR is like herself, but it's zero self or back or vice versa. I really don't know. I looked up for a long time how to use these properly, and I am you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's who I am.
No, well, here's another thing. So let's bring in the whole chest milk, breast milk
Wait a
situation.
minute. Before you
Uh,
do that, let's show this so people can know what you're talking about. So, what Brandy's about to develop here is you cannot say mom or woman or any male or female gender. It's now incorrect to do that. So you have to say a pregnant parent, a birthing parent or person. You can't say father or dad. You have to say non-gestational parent or co-parent or birth partner. Cannot say motherhood or fatherhood is now parenthood. You cannot say breastfeeding or breastfeeding mom. It's lactation, chest feeding, or a nursing parent. So they completely took. I'm going to show this one too. Instead of sister or brother, you have to use sibling. Instead of male and female, you need to use human. Instead of Mr. and Mrs. or Ms., you need to use MX, mix brandy. Um, Instead of wife or husband, you use spouse. Um, so this is the thing, Brandy. I want you to take it from here. But to me, it sounds like they're trying to make everybody into a larger group. There's no more individuality. You can't have mom and dad. You just have to have the larger group of parents. You can't have a boy or girl. You have to have a child. You can't have a brother or sister. You have to have so they're making everybody into large groups, which takes away our identity. We already have to wear masks so no one knows anybody. Now we have to call each other by larger names of groups of people instead of individual people. All right, Brandy, go ahead.
so remember at the beginning, Bill, you weren't here when I was talking about. It seems like so it's okay to want change in the world, right? We everything upgrades. We don't still ride bicycles to get here and there. We have cars now, so we upgrade, right? But there's something called extreme inclusion, which is what I think is happening. It's okay to want to have inclusion. I don't want to be left out and not be able to buy a house because I'm black, but Bill can go buy a house because he's Caucasian.
Mhm.
That's what we're talking about. Not leaving Bill out of you can't get, fried chicken because the black people, that's their soul food. That's the inclusion we're talking about. Not when it comes to the way that I was born into this world. If even in the hospital, let's just say I was transgender and Melanie said, we have no problem with your choices. You check a box when you get there, male, female, not like they got 7 different boxes you can check now. If I'm the nurse and I look on here and see that's your then I should be able to converse with you on the level in which you showed up on. I should not have to change my entire language for this lady who came in. She's born a woman. On here she picked woman. I'm going to talk to her at the level she's presented on. You should not have to change all of your grammar. And for the fairness of the hospital system, it should be listed on there what to call them. So because you're not going, what was I supposed to, because then they're going to be in trouble for not using the language when it's not that they don't want to. They already have to remember all kind of medical stuff. Now you're going to add grammar into their being. It just seems like it's too much, and there's no reason behind it. Not saying that inclusion is not a great reason, but why are you so offended? This was your choice. So if this was your choice, my choice was to become this, then you have to take the consequences that came with your actions, which is what I talked about freedom of speech. Just because you have freedom of speech doesn't mean you have freedom of consequences. I got stopped by the police this morning
Uh-oh.
doing a 40 and a 25.
Oh, Brandy.
School don't even be in no more. And they just happen to be at today. So guess what? I had a freedom of speeding down that school zone, but it was not without a ticket that came behind it. Now, is he going? He said he gave me. He said, Bill, y'all know how y'all do. Yeah, Bill is a police officer, and so he said, just bring a ticket. I'll lower it for you. And he didn't give me the consequence that I should have got for the driving the 40. He dropped it down for me. I appreciated that, but it still was not without consequence. But I chose an action, and therefore there was a reaction and a penalty behind it. And this generation is so entitled. They want to do what they want to do, say what they want to say, be who they want to be without the consequence that comes behind it. And I don't know who taught them that or who even said it should be okay. So this whole include me, we can include you without excluding ourselves.
Yes.
See, Brandy, I want to finish with that one. I want to say that I agree. The entitled generation says, I want what I want it the way I want it. But then they go one step further where I can't go with. And therefore, you can't do what you want or you think because that is different than what I think. So therefore, you are not allowed to get what you want or you think. Only I am. And that is not good. That's not good. I'm not telling people they shouldn't want what they want. I want what I want. That's normal, but I don't want it as opposed to you getting what you want.
Exactly.
So right now we're like, no, if you disagree with me, I want what I want, and no one else is allowed to have what they want because unless it agrees with me. That's really strange. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's super strong right now. And as far as pronouns go, I just thought about this while you were talking. As a cop, we have what's called BOLs, be on the lookout. So some white Caucasian male, 35 years old, 6 foot tall, 200 pounds with blonde hair, robs the liquor store. They say, look for a 6 foot tall, 35-year-old white male, approximately 6 foot tall with blonde hair. Now, let's go with what this crazy stuff political correctness is, because I think it's crazy. Okay, a person just robbed a liquor store, and go look for him.
Right.
Or no, I'm sorry. Go look for that person. Go look for that person.
Right.
They just left going westbound, but that's it. Well, are they male or female? Well, we can't tell you. Are they white or black or Hispanic? Can't say. Are they tall or short? Can't say. That's going to offend people who are tall or short. Are they older or younger? Can't say. That's ageism. I can't tell you if they're a white male, 6 foot tall, 35 years old with blonde hair because there's people will be offended by that.
That's right.
Well, that's insane. That's crazy. You're never going to catch anybody.
I had a conversation
can't do
a week
that.
ago with someone, guys, and I had to, and it was like, okay, me, like it's me. I'm not trying to offend anyone. And this person was identifying as just a female, okay, just a female. But because of all the pronoun issues, she said, can we please talk and clarify when we're talking that you say biological female, biological male, and then went through the Z's, they's, and everybody else. I'm like, wait a minute. It's just me and you talking. If I'm referring to an actress, why do I need to say biological actress, and name the person? I don't understand. So it is to the point where I think everybody should have the right to say and identify the way they choose. The one thing in the Bible is clear is that God gives us freedom of choice.
Right.
But we are now in a political correctness environment, social media correctness environment, that if we say anything someone doesn't like, that freedom of speech is gone. And that's a danger, because that's exactly what happened. And we're going to get canceled if I say the word, because someone else already got canceled. But that's exactly how Hitler did it back in the day. He made one thing offensive, one person offensive, one type of thing offensive. He let it be out there in the community through propaganda, and people took a hold of it, and they got what they wanted. He got what he wanted as a government: complete control and destruction of anybody that wasn't like him. And
There's something, Melanie, called a zeitgeist. It's an old term. It's a German term, and it means the spirit of the times, and that's what it means. And it goes way back before the 20th century. But the idea is if you look at history, you'll see an entire cultural movement, one way or the other, the zeitgeist, the spirit of that time. And we have seen a paradigm shift in our zeitgeist to this political correctness. And I don't know how long it'll last, because no zeitgeist lasts forever. But I'm not young, and it may last the rest of my lifetime, where I will be canceled if I don't bow my knee to the political correctness movement. And I'm not going to bow my knee to anybody but Jesus. I'll be polite to everyone, and I am polite, but I'm not going to change, and I don't expect anybody to bow their knee to me. I'm not even right all the time, so I don't expect you to agree with me, but I'm not going to agree with somebody either just to make it like nicey nice. I'm not going to do that. I'll be polite because that's important. But this zeitgeist that we have right now, the spirit of the times that's taken over, it's real pervasive. It is. And if you speak up, you are going to pay the price. And what's strange is, even if you are a very liberal person, but you just speak up in defense of somebody, like I said, you're back to the Salem witch trials now. Now you're one of them. Oh, we got to get rid of you too. That's going on right before our very eyes. And it seems like people are afraid to talk about it. I'm not, but I'm not in Hollywood. I don't know if I'd do it in Hollywood. Maybe I'd be a little afraid to, for fear that they would cancel me. I don't know, but it would be, they're in a rough situation because of what's going on. And it's pervasive. It is across the board. This isn't isolated incidents. There's a ton of them now.
Brandy, final word that you have to say on this before we go.
This is probably not going to be very popular, but I would suggest read the book The Bait of Satan, because that is a very good book that talks about the spirit of offense. And I think it's just running rampant in our world. I don't have to continually find reasons to be offended over and over. If I did that, if we sit around and nitpick people, I'm pretty sure you're going to find something. But use more energy to find ways that we're alike. Bill says this all the time. There are several ways that we are different. We are on two separate sides of the spectrum sometimes, but sometimes we're on the same spectrum. Find more ways to be included on your own versus trying to force someone to have your perspective. Be okay that someone has another perspective. We have a beginning date and an end date, and none of us knew when we were going to be born or when we're going to die. But all we do know is the time in between. Use more of your time to build instead of trying to tear down and find things to be offensive about. Use that energy to help heal the world.
Yes. And that's called love. And love, like Brandy said, Brandy and I are on two different ends of the country. She's a female. I know we just went over, we're not supposed to say that, but I am a male. But we are biological. Will help your friend there, Melanie.
Thank you.
We're biological, male and female. We are different politically in some ways. We are definitely. But you know what? I love Brandy, and Brandy loves me, because we care for each other as believers in Christ, brothers and sisters in Christ, human beings. And we care for each other as people. Who cares about the other stuff? That just is silly to let that divide people. But Satan will always try and divide people.
And I'm not going to be offended that you no longer care for me or love me. I'm not going to be offended that you left me out of that equation and cancel you. I'm going to let you stay on the show and not cancel you because we can have difference of opinions. Listen, I want to make something clear as my final say today. I have been saved by the blood of Jesus Christ, and therefore I hold on to the biblical truths. They are my truths. They are the foundation of everything in my life. However, the one thing, like I already said, that God makes clear to me is that He has given all of us freedom of choice, freedom to choose everything about our lives. It is not my place or my co host's place to push our beliefs on you listening or anyone that we encounter in our daily life. We choose to respect other people's choices. If you're listening and you are offended at any part of this show today, this conversation, please know it was not our intent. And try to understand that it is also hard to be on this side of the fence. The offense where rules and changes and values and beliefs are being put on us that we have a moral and religious belief so deep in us that we can't go against it. We hope that this conversation today between the cancel culture and the gender neutrality really allows people to stop and think before we attack other people for having a basic opinion, a belief system, and a language that maybe we don't all agree with. Thank you for joining us today. Please hit and like the hit button, the like button, the subscribe button, so that we can get it out there that we're here and more people can see us. If you would like to be a guest or a topic that you would like to see us discuss, let me know. You can do that at Truth to Hear on any social media platform, or you can directly email me at info@truthtohear as well. Thank you so much for being on the show, Brandy and Bill, today. I really appreciate having you. It's not an easy conversation, but I do thank you for being brave enough to have it with me. Um, may God continue to lead us. And don't forget, this is only your daily dose for Tuesday. What's going on tomorrow? Tomorrow we will have a conversation with award-winning journalist and author Brian Gardner on his book, A Plan for America and the World. And then Thursday, we're going to sum up the 7 churches in Revelation. We have deciphered each church, and now it is time to bring them full force together. And then Friday's message, a committed church. What does that look like? And can we stay committed in this phase of society that we're living in? Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great week.